Well, I mean, we'll get into it. I'm.
Yeah, we've got
We'll get
we've
into
got a
it.
whole lot of to go over. Basically, what we kind of done, what I did is I read the article and I kind of like picked out a bunch of topics we can talk about, and I kind of organized it by discipline. So, first we'll kind of talk about design, then we're going to start talking about programming and technology, marketing, management, have a kind of a general bitch session about crunch, and that will probably wrap us up. So we're going to have a pretty packed discussion today, I think.
Yes. The list of things they did right. I mean, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah, I think the thing I think it's interesting to look at, like, even though it's kind of negative to look at what went wrong, because usually that's more instructive than what went right. But a lot of times, like, what games do right it tends to be like one of those things that you can't necessarily isolate those out. Usually, what goes right is kind of a combination of things. And trying to say, well, any one thing, well, they did this right. You can often point to another game and say, oh, well, you look at this other game and that, like, they did exactly the same, exactly the same thing, but it didn't work because of a lot of the other factors together.
Because of circumstances, yeah.
Right. I mean, like, quick example here is Minecraft. Like, you say, oh, well, they use simple graphics to, that runs on everybody's computer. Well, there's plenty of games that use simple graphics to run on everybody's computer that don't see anywhere near
The
Minecraft's level
popularity.
of success. Yeah, exactly. And so, like, trying to talk about what went right is often, like, ironically, a lot harder. I think, like, and especially since we're kind of looking at the development process, like, that tends to be pretty opaque. We're mostly going off of the reporting from the Kotaku article. But keeping in mind that um, kind of keep in mind that like, it's basically a one-sided article. They talked to the developers. They really didn't talk to the management. Probably because the management wouldn't talk to them. Um, and uh, and so we kind of have to kind of keep that context in mind. And so we don't, since the developers didn't say, oh, hey, all this stuff went right. I mean, basically, kind of only, like, there's only a couple things they did that went right, and I think you kind of illustrate this as, like, not doing what went wrong. More than anything, on the development side, anything they, like, they did really spectacularly. So
I mean, journalism can be one-sided at times.
right. Well, I think that, Dejar was talking about, like, Kotaku kind of having a reputation for, maybe not being fully truthful and sometimes doing things in order to, to be clickbait rather than, informative. I don't think that they're, like, they're lying necessarily. I think, it's potential they, like, are painting a one-sided image. And I think it's, it's entirely possible that, like, maybe they're being a little more brutal. But I think as an experienced developer myself, I can kind of correct for some of that a bit. I mean, because, like, when you're down in the trenches, like, I think a perfect example of this is, like, when I worked on Meridian.
Oh,
You
here
know,
we get. No, I'm kidding.
when I worked at 3DO on Meridian, they, like, I always wanted to, like, have more time to work on stuff. Like, oh, we should go and do this thing. And, like, the management is like, no, we need to add new stuff because that's what brings people back and that's what retains people. Fixing bugs is all well and good, but, like, that doesn't retain and draw people back.
I wonder if that one quest in the Old Republic still bugged. I want to go back and play it again just to see if that quest is still bugged, because that was like 6 years ago. No, that was like 7 years ago. Holy crap, the Old Republic's a really old game now.
Yeah, time keeps on passing.
There was just this one bug where the you you had to go in and kill 3 mobs basically. Yeah, there's a boss and two minions.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just bugged and they would just run and like it was one of those instanced rooms
Mm-hmm.
that you can only go in with like your specific class.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a hallway. And
Mm-hmm.
and the way that they were bugged, they would just literally run from the end of the hallway that they spawn all the way back to the door that you walk in through the door and then reset.
Huh.
And like there's just nothing you could do to stop them. So you had to play it. Thankfully enough, that the class that it was for was the Jedi Shadow, which is like the rogue of
Mm-hmm.
the Old Republic. So like I managed to do it, but that was because I was a Shadow and I had like 5 stuns that I could just
Ah.
keep stunning the boss over and over and over. So basically, what you do is you take on one minion, stun it to death until it dies, let the mobs reset. The minion you killed
Unless the
does
one
not
killed. Right.
respawn.
Right.
So then you do it again, and then again and
Right.
again, and it was just like this. How did this? How? How?
Right. But yeah, so so anyway, like we're to kind of kind of continue with our little introduction here. Basically, Anthem is a loot shooter type game, which the game we're playing, Warframe, kind of falls in that category as well, to some extent. It was made by BioWare. It was kind of like a little bit of left field game for them, but it had a very troubled development cycle, which is basically what we're gonna really kind of tear into and start looking at. Like I said, there's many sides of the story, and like the Kotaku article kind of gives the one side of the story of the developers there. Um, Again, sometimes people in the trenches don't have the bigger picture in mind. That's what the management's supposed to be for. So sometimes there, I'm not gonna say there's this is gonna excuse away a lot of the problems, but sometimes there's reasons why things kind of go this way. And like a lot of one of the problems you run into is that there's this concept of the perfect beating the enemy of the good. Like you want to, when you do a creative work, you want it to be perfect, and so you kind of dote on it and you work on it and you putter on it, but you never kind of get to the point where you kind of shove it out the door. A lot of times that's kind of where that's the management thing. What to do is it's like, okay, we've got the deadline, it needs to get done by this time. But like I said, this is a super dense article. We're going to be tearing it apart pretty massively.
You mean you're gonna be tearing it apart?
Well, I mean, I can pretend that you're going to be a useful part too. Um,
That takes a lot of imagination.
I'm good. I can roleplay. Um,
Oh shit! I'm a role player. Fuck, you're right.
but yeah, I mean, so there's a lot of issues to discuss. So, um, but yeah, should be interesting. Hopefully, people kind of chip in with their own experience, their own perspectives. Keep in mind that I'll give the standard caveats here. I don't have any particular special insider knowledge here. I know some people who have worked at the BioWare Austin office. I don't know if I know anybody that's there currently, but it's not like I have some secret insider information.
Source. Oh
Yeah.
my god, how great would that be? I'm all a GrimTalk exclusive.
Well, I mean, the GDC was just recently last month, so a lot. I'm sure there's a lot of tongues wagging at that about what really went on.